The hour is 7 p.m. Having arrived, I'll call to order this regular meeting of Keene City Council. This meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel and Spectrum Channel 1302. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted by the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. If you'd like to receive an electronic City Council packet to reference while viewing future broadcasts, please contact the City Clerk's office during regular business hours, or go to the city's website and subscribe to the city meetings email list. The agenda is also accessible from any mobile device. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Brian J. Lake.
Here.
Michael J. Remy.
Here.
Gladys Johnson.
Here.
Michael Giacomo.
Here.
Randy L. Filio.
Here.
Robert C. Williams.
Here.
Philip M. Jones.
Present.
Andrew M. Madison.
Here.
Chris E. Roberts.
Here.
Raleigh C. Ormerod.
Here.
Tina H. Adborn.
Here.
Catherine I. Workman.
Here.
Mitchell H. Greenwald. All right, thank you. Kate M. Bosley.
Here.
Thomas F. Powers.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Jones, will you please lead us in the pledge?
I be honored.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we've got minutes from our previous meeting. I'd accept a motion from Councilor Powers, a second by Councilor Bosley, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to accept the minutes of the July 20th, 2023 City Council meeting as presented.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilor Powers, seconded by Councilor Bosley. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? All those in favor? Opposed? That is unanimous. We've got several announcements. We've got a welcome back from your break, everybody. I hope you had an enjoyable summer vacation. We've had a couple birthdays, and we've got a birthday coming up. Chris Roberts' birthday was on August 9th. Happy birthday to Chris. Tom Powers has a birthday on August 12th. And Councilor Brian Lake has a birthday coming up on the 19th. And I'd also like to just take a minute to acknowledge Councilor Andrew Madison and Ray Phillips, our lieutenant of fire alarms, for their heroism that they showed. They happened to be in the vicinity of a car accident on Route 9, and I understand that their efforts saved a woman's life who was badly injured in that car accident. And so I just wanted to take a moment and commend Councilor Madison and Lieutenant Phillips on their heroism. So thank you for doing it. The filing period's begun for our fall municipal elections. Candidates can either pay a filing fee and complete a declaration of candidacy, or they may also file by petition by collecting the signatures of 50 registered voters to get their name on the ballot. The filing period for declaration ends on September 5th at 5 p.m. The filing period for petitions runs until September 8th at 5 p.m. I encourage all the city councilors to go out there and ask somebody to run. I think if we have a lot of people that step up to run for office in the city, that's a good thing no matter what. So do your duty and get out there and drum up some candidates. We're scheduling 2 workshops, so September 18th, well, up to 2 workshops. September 18th is going to be the goals workshop, and then we've reserved October 16th as an additional date if you need it for the goals. These workshops are going to be at Heberden Hall at 6 p.m. The setup for these meetings will not accommodate remote access, so please make sure that you can attend in person. Light refreshments will be served in advance of those workshops. And now we'd move on to proclamations, and I'd ask Councilor Williams to join me up here because I have a proclamation about Overdose Awareness Day. Sure, yep. Anyone who wants to come and accept the proclamation. Thanks for coming up. Thank you. Nice to meet you. So whereas August 31st is designated across the world as International Overdose Awareness Day, and whereas this occasion is dedicated to honoring the memory of those lost to opiate overdose, to supporting those deeply impacted by the loss of loved ones, and to demonstrate our resolve in working to reduce and ultimately eliminate overdose fatalities. And whereas many members of our community have been affected by the overdose crisis, whether personally struggling with substance use disorder, navigating it alongside loved ones, or having suffered a tragic loss due to overdose, they're carrying a heavy weight of immeasurable grief as a result. And whereas opiate overdose fatalities have persisted more than 15 years since the contemporary ascent began, rising to our national consciousness. And whereas these unnecessary deaths are once again increasing across the state of New Hampshire, and whereas the City of Keene is committed to treating those currently struggling, those in recovery, and those lost to overdose with dignity and love. Therefore, I, George S. Hansel, Mayor, do hereby proclaim August 31st, 2023 as International Overdose Awareness Day in the City of Keene. I recognize its importance, and I encourage all of our residents to join in remembering those lost to overdose at a candlelight vigil that's coming up. In witness whereof, I hear and do set my hand in the official seal of the City of Keene, the 17th day of August, 2023. And if one of you would like, or all of you would like to speak to this, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. My name is Anina Hansen, and here with my friend Jody Newell, we're facilitating Keene's first International Overdose Awareness Day event. It's Thursday, August 31st, here in the square, 7 to 8 p.m. Candles will be provided. We'll have some speakers. It's just a time to draw together and remember those who've been lost and those who are struggling now, and the families who love them, and just the great issue that this is, not just personally, economically, on so many levels here in our community and in our state. So we would be very grateful to have people come out and be part of that event and raise the awareness around the issue. Thank you.
Here you go. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have a public hearing tonight, and I would ask the clerk to please read the notice.
Notice is hereby given that a site visit and public hearing are scheduled before the Keene City Council to consider a petition on behalf of Wickham Mills Estates to accept a warranty deed and return of layout for a public way known as Brookfield Lane to begin at a granite bound on the westerly sideline of Wickham's Mill Road. Per order of the mayor and councilors of the City of Keene on the 6th day of July, 2023. Signed, Patty Little, City Clerk.
Thank you. I'd recognize our city engineer, Don Lucier, to introduce this project.
Thank you, Your Honor. Don Lucier, City Engineer. Tonight we're here to talk about this petition that's come before the council to requesting that the council lay out a new public road here in the city. The petitioner has suggested the name of Brookfield Lane. It would be located on the west side of Wickham's Mill, approximately almost exactly opposite the entrance into Langdon Place. If the commission, or excuse me, if the council ultimately approves the petition, you'll be taking over on for public maintenance and operation about 100 or 850 linear feet of new roadway. It's actually about 750 feet from the Wickham's Mill down to the back of the cul-de-sac, but when you include the perimeter of the roundabout, or excuse me, the roundabout's on the brain. If you can include the perimeter of the cul-de-sac, it's about 850 feet of new roadway. Along with about 1,350 feet of public sewers with, you know, the manholes and appurtenances that go with it. Along with 2 culverts shown on the map here on the screens in blue. Those are existing culverts that we'll be taking over. It does not include some other stormwater features that are proposed as part of the development. Specifically, there is a stormwater management pond that's proposed as part of this development. That pond will collect water off of the roadway and allow sediment to filter out, deposit out, and treat the water before it enters the wetlands complex. That actually, and hopefully you all can see my cursor here on the screen, that's located right about here. But that is part of the open space parcel that will be under the ownership and responsibility of the proposed homeowners association for its development. The petition came along with some requests for waivers under the city development standards, the land development code. Chapter 22 addresses public infrastructure and how you process waivers for that. Except for driveways, street access permits, ultimately it's up to the city council to approve those waivers. There's 4 waivers specifically that they've asked for. Section 22.3.7 addresses sidewalks. 22.3.8 addresses both streetlights and underground utilities. 22.3.16 talks about street trees. And I'll talk about each one of those in turn. So 22.3.7.a, sidewalk says, sidewalk shall be required on at least one side of any proposed street in any residential zoning district. So obviously it would apply here. There are provisions in the code for developers to provide an alternative system of pedestrian accommodations that don't run parallel to the roads. In this case, the developer is proposing to construct a gravel pathway leading from Brookfield Lane up to the Cheshire Rail Trail. It would actually go through that open space that's reserved for conservation. We think that this is a good solution. It provides safe pedestrian access from the homes on Brookfield Lane up to the Cheshire Rail Trail, and from there the residents can meander down into the city and get a drink or what have you. So it does meet the requirements in that respect, but put more of a fine point on it, quite frankly. From an operational perspective, it would be very difficult for the city's Public Works office to maintain sidewalks. There's no sidewalk network anywhere in the vicinity of this development. So for us to provide winter maintenance plowing, it would be very, very difficult logistically to get equipment out there to do that. So we think this is a reasonable compromise, and we recommend granting that request. Section 22.3.8b addresses street lighting. It says street lights shall be required at intersections in all zoning districts and along the length of public streets in all residential zoning districts. So again, it clearly applies to this development. The applicant has requested to not provide any street lights. The representative for the petitioner will be speaking in a little bit, and I'll let him make the argument for that. We believe right now there's no lighting on Wickham's Mill, so at the very least that we think that lighting that intersection so that the turning movements are illuminated would be a prudent safety measure. But really, we think that the standards should apply in this case, in that the street lights every 400 feet was a typical standard, which would require 3 total streetlights, one at Wickham's Mill, one at the end of the cul-de-sac, and one right along the middle of the roadway. So we recommend against granting that waiver. Section 22.3.7, I'm sorry, that should say 3.8D, addresses, it's a little wonky, but it addresses when you have to put in underground utilities. And what it says is when the underground streetlight feeding is required, meaning that the streetlights are required to be provided electricity underground, then the telephone, electric, and cable TV shall also be underground. And that it includes a number of different zones, including the low-density zones. So it does apply here. Again, We don't have a basis for, recommending against that. We don't see any reason why they shouldn't put those utilities underground. That is the city council standard. So we recommend against granting that waiver. And then finally, 22.3.16A addresses street trees. It says there shall be at least one deciduous tree of a minimum 2-inch caliber at planting, and of a species approved by the Public Works Director for every 50-foot interval of each side of any new street or extension of an existing street. And the applicant has, made the statement that there's a lot of trees on that site right now. It's a wooded lot, essentially, and that's true. However, once those properties get sold to individual homeowners, we really have no control over whether those trees remain or removed. But I think more to the point, street tree requirements do a couple of things. They allow the city to set an aesthetic standard for how streets should be developed, but they also provide environmental benefits, addressing heat island and stormwater management and whatnot. So again, we don't see a compelling reason to grant that waiver, and we recommend against granting it. And with that, I will end my presentation and allow the petitioner to speak.
Okay, are there any immediate questions for staff at this point? No, then I would recognize Jim Fippard to present on behalf of the petitioner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jim Fippard, here on behalf of Wickham's Mill Estates, LLC. It used to be the Sandra Henry Trust, but they changed the name to put it into an LLC so they'd be in a position to convey the houses in the future rather than trying to convey it out of a trust. So that is the current name. Last year, the City Council agreed to rezone this property from rural to low density 1. And that's the zone we're in today. That made it possible for us to propose a small development like you see represented on this plan. This is a CRD, Conservation Residential Development. It'll consist of 9 separate lots. 8 of the lots are accessed by a proposed new city street that ends in a cul-de-sac. One of those lots is a large 6.87 acre lot that is part of the permanent open space that's required with every CRD. There's also a lot which has direct frontage from Wickham's Mill Road and will not have access from the new road we are proposing to construct. The development is intended to be a mix of single-family homes and duplexes. And you'll see the variances in lot sizes. The larger lots, or 4 of them, are intended to support duplexes. If somebody buys that lot, however, and doesn't want to build a duplex, they don't have to. They can build a single-family home just on a larger lot. And the smaller lots are intended to be single-family homes. I've been in this business a long time, over 40 years. Back when I started in the 1970s, we did a lot of residential development, built a lot of single-family homes, hundreds of them around Keene. And I can't tell you how difficult it has become today to build new single-family homes. I don't think we'll ever see a development like Paco Avenue again, where we're building whole neighborhoods, home after home after home, simply because of the costs. And that's the reason that has driven the request for the waivers that are considered before you today. The sidewalk, I think, is a no-brainer. There are no sidewalks anywhere near there. It would be a burden for the Public Works Department to go out and plow a sidewalk where they wouldn't be there for any other reason. So I think that's completely unnecessary. This is a very rural area, even though you rezoned it to LD1. It's still mostly wooded all around the houses you see in those neighborhoods, and we want to respect that. We don't want to cut all the trees on the lots. The owner is going to develop probably half of these lots, and build at least a couple single-family homes and a couple of the duplexes, is what he's telling me. And so the intent is to preserve as many trees as possible to preserve the character of that neighborhood. And we think that that adds value to this lot. We've talked to a lot of potential buyers who are interested already. They've been following us as there's publicity and as we've been making our progress. And we've been working at this for a little over 3 years now already. And so it's just taken a long time. But they love that. They don't want to be in the middle of a dense neighborhood. They love the idea of preserving the trees, preserving the large open space. We're going to have, as the city engineer pointed out, we're proposing to construct a gravel pathway within the open space land. So that'll be owned and maintained by the homeowners association. That'll be maintaining all of the common land. So that's not a city burden to maintain that path. I have to apply for and get a license from the Trails Bureau at New Hampshire DOT in order to make the connection to the rail trail, but I've been assured it'll be granted. We just have to pay the annual fees to do it. Yeah, there's an annual fee to actually do that. The other waivers that we applied for, underground utilities. I work on a lot of different projects. I'm working on a project in Chesterfield, New Hampshire now, which wants all underground utilities. So I met at the site with Eversource to get their approval to locate where the underground utilities would go. I was informed by them, don't rush out and do this because we can't get transformers for a year. And I can't promise you'll have it in a year. So you're not going to be able to power this development in this year. We're hoping we can get it for you in 2024. Immediately, we switched from underground to overhead electricity into this site because of that. And Eversource already went out and set a pole at the site. That's that pole that you were looking at if you were on the site visit today. It looks like a new pole because it is. And it's on the edge of the intended right-of-way. It's located right about here. And our intent is to do all overhead electric into the site, partially because of the scheduling that Eversource is forcing us to live with, but also because of the cost. I was also informed we had 4 site contractors bidding this work, hoping we could start this fall. Since then, 2 have dropped out. With all of the washouts and road damages that have occurred, New Hampshire DOT has been grabbing every site contractor who's capable to help them rebuild roadways. So 2 of them are no longer interested in building our project because of that. The other 2 said they'll give me a bid. We're hoping that they can start this fall if we can get the necessary permits and approvals. But the prices are already skyrocketing. I had a price a month ago. They've withdrawn it because of the prices of asphalt, the prices of materials just keeps going up and up and up and up, and they can't hold their price. So that's driving up our costs, and it's going to drive up the costs for future homeowners. And this is why it's becoming so difficult. This is why nobody wants to build single-family homes anymore unless they're a nonprofit and they're getting grants and low-interest loans that a private developer can't get. So it's just really becoming difficult and almost impossible. I was also told the price of the 5-inch conduit, if we're forced to do underground electric utilities, is now $90 a linear foot. 2 years ago, it was $15 a linear foot. And that doesn't include the wire. That's just the conduit to put it in. And then the cost to bury it and install it for 750 feet of roadway. So you're looking at adding over $100,000 to the cost of developing potentially 12 living units. And then street trees. If you made it to the site visit today, and I think you all did, you can see how forested the site is. One of the provisions in the Land Development Code under the street standard sections is that we can meet that requirement for street trees if we can preserve trees or plant trees within 20 feet of the right-of-way, and then give the city an easement to maintain those trees. And we're willing to do that. And on this site, we're going to have hundreds of trees within 20 feet of the public right-of-way. So I don't feel it's necessary, I think it's redundant and a wasted expense to plant what would be 30 street trees within the city right-of-way. And that estimated cost, by the way, was an additional $75,000. So you add that, add the electrical cost. If you insist on a sidewalk, I have no idea what the cost of a sidewalk, maybe court. I know it's over $100 a linear foot for a concrete sidewalk built to city specs. So we certainly don't want to do that. That would be another $75,000. So you can see what happens. It just goes out of sight. We're struggling, trying hard now to keep the cost of a new single-family home under $500,000 in this development. And that's about as tight as we can get it. And we're negotiating now with two suppliers. These will be stick-built homes, and trying to get that price down. So please respect the fact that these waivers aren't done on a whim. We did this because we felt it was absolutely necessary to try to retain our budget. Street lighting, there are no street lights anywhere on Wickham's Mill Road. You look across the street at Langdon Place of Keene, they don't have street lighting, they don't have parking lot lighting on big poles in their parking lots. They're all residential scale lighting. And we want to keep that pattern. We want to respect the night sky standards that the city lighting standards try to honor and maintain. And we don't want any street lights on the street. We want to keep it a dark sky area. We want to be able to see the meteors, which are ongoing right now, the Perseid meteor showers at night. And there is a chance to do that as long as we don't have street lights. If we're forced to put in street lights, this is going to be another pocket glowing at night. Right across from my house on Arch Street is a street light on the city street. And I wish it wasn't there, just because it really changes the whole atmosphere after dark. So each of these waiver requests we did for very good reasons, and I'll attend the committee meeting next week and try to convince the committee to recommend that these waivers be granted. So we take it very seriously. Please, I hope I can help you understand what the real cost is when you require things like this. And I don't think that was the intent. I think they're thinking aesthetics and appearance, and it's just such a steep cost to pay. I think that we should be granted the waivers. The city sewer, city engineer did a good job describing it at the site. It's going to originate across Wickham's Mill Road at Langdon Place of Keene. When Langdon Place was built in the 1980s, I did that site plan, I did their permitting, and I succeeded in convincing them to give the city of Keene a sewer easement. So we extended the sewer from Arch Street under White Brook into the site, all the way to this point in front of the last wing of the Langdon Place building, and then extended the easement to Wickham's Mill Road. At the time, I did it because my brothers and I owned this land across the street. And I felt that'll give us a chance to get city sewer. Someday, maybe the city will extend it, maybe we'll have to extend it. The zoning at the time, we gave it up. I gave up waiting for it. This is 12.47 acres of land, and the zoning at that time was very strict 5-acre zoning. If we extended city sewer and city water, then it could go to 2-acre zoning. And we just couldn't make the numbers work. It wasn't even close. So we gave up on it. We sold the land to the current owners in the late 1980s, and they've been sitting on it all this time until the most recent zoning changes have finally made it feasible, we hope feasible, to give them a chance to build this development. So the rezoning was critical. The waivers are critical to try to keep our costs reined in. But he's really trying to fill a need here. You know how badly we need housing. A lot of my clients are industrial clients. I got site plan approval for 2 industrial expansions already in the last couple of years, and they've held off on starting them because they can't get help. They can't get the people to occupy the space if they build it. So it's just become a major, major problem. And I know you keep hearing it, but it's real. It's very real. And I see it affecting my clients in this way. So any amount of new housing is going to help. A lot of the companies that I've been working for are from out of New England, out of the area, but they have a facility here in Keene, and they're trying to expand those facilities. They advertised and couldn't recruit new workers, so they've talked to people in their New Jersey divisions and New York divisions and asked if they helped them to relocate to Keene, would they come? They came in groups and looked at Keene, loved the city, couldn't find a place to live. Couldn't find a house. You got to realize they're in New Jersey. They're selling, $600,000 and $700,000, $800,000 homes. They come here and think this is going to be great. I can get a great house here because I can sell my house down there, but they can't find anything. So it's a real problem, and this is going to help. So these will be new homes. We think it'll be possible to keep it under 500,000. That's what we're trying hard to do. And that is immediately going to help some of these businesses that are in the city. So I hope you'll support our request. When we started out, we didn't want it to be a city street. We wanted to keep it private. And it wasn't that long ago you could do it, have a private road and still sell houses that fronted on the private road. But under the latest land development code and those changes, it's no longer possible. Has to be a public right-of-way. Has to be a city street. So that changed the width of the area, changes the way we build the road to meet the current city standards, and brought in all these items that led to me asking for these waivers. So I'm retiring this year, and I think I'm getting out just in time because I see how hard it is to do this, and it just makes it really hard to want to do this anymore. I'm fighting hard to make this happen. I want to see this as a positive, one of my last projects, and I hope you'll grant the approval for the city street, and I hope you'll support my request for waivers, and I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? All right, seeing none, I'll open up the public portion of this hearing. Would anyone like to testify at this time? Any members of the public? Yes, Mr. Lacy. Please just state your name and address for the minute taker.
I'm Walter Lacy. I live at 230 Daniels Hill Road. The intersection of New Hampshire Route 9 and Wickham's Mill Road has become over the years a perilous place. New accident debris seems to be appearing weekly. I'm surprised that fact hasn't been considered in improving a development that will only make it more perilous. Wickham's Mill Road, once a quiet country road bisected by the relocation of Route 9 in the late 1950s, is now a very active shortcut to destinations in North and West Keene, such as the hospital, Keene High, the middle school, the Y, Smith's Medical, CNS, Brentwood, and so on. Langdon Place was built adjacent 25 years ago, and recently a rail trail parking lot. More than 20 new homes have been built on Daniels Hill Road and Langley Road since the intersection was created, and Route 9 traffic has increased dramatically. For more than 25 years, residents who use this intersection have appealed in writing to the New Hampshire DOT and to this body in January of 2004 to make safety improvements such as a turning lane and better sight lines. We've been put off, strung on, or ignored. I believe Mayor Hansel has experienced some of our frustration in his recent attempt to communicate with the New Hampshire DOT Commissioner on our behalf. By accepting the deed and layout of Brookfield Lane and enabling its housing development, you will be subjecting 12 households, their visitors, tradespeople, and vendors to unnecessarily hazardous route to and from the city. The increased traffic will also put the residents who now regularly use the intersection at greater risk. See for yourselves what using this intersection entails when things are the least bit busy. Sit on Route 9 eastbound, maybe behind another car, waiting for the opportunity to turn left north onto Wickham's Mill Road as a tractor-trailer truck doing 55 plus and just spied you bears down from behind. New guardrails have further degraded the visibility of eastbound Route 9 traffic for those on the north side of Wickham's Mill Road. Horror stories abound of hazardous experiences and near misses. Many of you know Josh Meehan, a neighbor who was the Keene Housing Director. A few months ago, he, his son, and their dog escaped serious injury when they were rear-ended and their car totaled while waiting to make a turn toward Daniels Hill Road from Route 9. Sadly, it seems to take a fatal accident to effect change. That was the impetus for the most recent modification of the Base Hill Road intersection. Don't let this happen. Unless there is a date-certain commitment from the New Hampshire DOT for safety improvements to this intersection, development should go no further. I'd like to quote from the mission statement of Keene City Government as codified in 1994, and these are in caps. The mission of the Keene City Government is to provide the best possible order, safety, justice, infrastructure, and services expected by its citizenry. I'll repeat, provide the best possible safety. Any questions?
No, thank you for your testimony. Anyone else wish to speak to this? Members of the public? Yes.
Thomas Lacey, 241 Daniels Hill Road. And I think, as my brother Walt pointed out, sort of incrementally over the years, what started as the can has kept getting kicked down the road. Incrementally, the number of uses on the junction of Route 9 and Wickham's Mills Road has increased incredibly. The speeds are incredibly high. And if you saw, you can say, well, where have the accidents been? I don't know why they're not on anybody's ledgers, because there is periodically glass. In the winter, snowbanks are missing. There's a guardrail, which isn't there right now. I don't know whether it's the cities or the states, but it periodically disappears. And it's from traffic heading west at a high speed. When people are heading from Brattleboro and they're coming upon someone stopped to turn left to go down towards this development, they don't slow down. They do not slow down. And so you just have what can appear to be a pretty sleepy little intersection. All of a sudden, people start appearing from nowhere. And then you have someone trying to come up the hill from the Felt Road area, and they get up there, and they're panicked to turn onto the road. So the point that I'm making is, at first, it's one of those intersections that first appears that like nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden it gets really complicated real fast. And so like I've developed a strategy, because I've lived there periodically for a while, to get through that intersection safely. The first thing is if I want to go down to Keene, I avoid it altogether. But if I want to go towards Arch Street and I want to use that intersection, if I see that anybody else is at that intersection, I know it's so dangerous that I stop about 150 feet short until I see that it's cleared. That doesn't guarantee someone else's, so that when I get there, there's no confusion, or there's less confusion. I have seen, and I think everybody that's lived there, you see hair-raising stuff. I mean, it's stuff that will bother you the rest of the day, because you might have been involved. And so you're getting fair warning here. And the city, I don't think, I actually support this development, except you got a one-lane bridge on one end. That doesn't really bother me. It's kind of a crappy road. But when you get up to that Route 9 intersection, you've got a lot of risk, and you're just increasing it. And I think that the city, I think that all progress on this development, including the acceptance of this right-of-way, should be suspended until there's some solution to increase the safety on the intersection of Route 9 and Wickham's Mill Road. And again, I don't think that the developer should pay for it. But I'll tell you, if there had been the amount of development over time, if the time span had been shortened up, and that amount of traffic now was just focused on 2 or 3 developments, I guarantee you that something would have already been done about that intersection. It would have been a requirement. But because it's just been sort of dispersed and kicked down the can has been kicked down the road one at a time, it has allowed an extremely dangerous situation to continue to get worse, and this development will only make that worse. Otherwise, I think that what would happen there is good from a housing point of view, but there's just a lot of risk there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? For those who spoke, I did send a letter to the commissioner of the DOT requesting a response, hoping that they would send something back to tell me at least they would have looked at this or had a plan to. I've yet to receive any response. It's been a couple of months, so I'm going to encourage, I'll do what I can to sort of take it to the next level and hopefully get some kind of action. And then I would encourage maybe our city staff, if they're having a conversation with the state DOT as well, to sort of bring this up, and let's see if we can get some answers for the public here, or at least some kind of response. Yes, Mr. Lacy.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
You heard us on May 22nd. I really appreciate that, but now you've experienced some frustration. If the mayor of Keene can't communicate, think of what we've been doing for over 25 years. Thank you.
I get it.
Thank you.
And I thought I was pretty well liked at the state, but apparently. I don't know.
I appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Yeah. Further discussion, or members of the public who'd like to speak? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public portion of the hearing, except for written comments, which will be accepted up until 1 p.m. Tuesday, August 22nd. Written comments must be signed and submitted to the city clerk by that date and time to be included in the record. I'll refer this matter to the Municipal Services, Facilities, and Infrastructure Committee, and that meeting is scheduled for August 24th. Next, we have a presentation from Aaron Costa, and I would invite Aaron up to give us a little presentation.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. Aaron Costa, Assistant Public Works Director, and I'm also the manager at the wastewater treatment plant. I've heard there's a lot of excitement and anticipation around tonight's presentation with the sludge dryer and feasibility study. I mean, I could tell wastewater all night. I find the science and the technology and the equipment that we use to operate that facility pretty amazing. But I'm here tonight to present the findings of a recently completed sludge dryer feasibility study. And with me tonight, I have the city's consultants on the project, Colin O'Brien and Bill Brower from Brown and Caldwell. I would like to take an opportunity to thank our partners on this project because it was completely funded by a $100,000 grant through the American Rescue Plan Act that was administered by New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. So as you all well know, the city owns and operates a wastewater treatment plant that treats about 3 million gallons of wastewater every day. It operates 24/7, 365. And we frequently talk about infrastructure and the discharge permit, which allows the city to discharge that treated wastewater into the Ashwheelet River.
But one of the things we don't really speak about is the biosolids or the sludge portion of the treatment plant. So when I do tours and everything at the plant, I kind of talk to, it's like a factory. We have a product, which is the clean treated effluent that returns to the river, but we also have a waste product that we need to dispose of, which is the biosolids. And currently, there are about 3 ways that you can get rid of biosolids. There's incineration. Manchester, New Hampshire has the only incinerator that I'm aware of in the state, and that has its own set of operational challenges. Landfilling is what we currently do with our sludge right now. It goes over to Waste Management's turnkey landfill in Rochester. But some of you may have heard that there may be limited landfill capacity in New England, and plus it's really not a desirable material to landfill due to its high moisture content. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. And then there's also beneficial reuse and land application, which means that a company would take your biosolids and amend it into a composted product that could then be land applied for beneficial reuse as a fertilizer for farmers' fields. But recent PFAS regulations may be changing the landscape of land application and beneficial reuse. So it's like, what do we do with all this material? So the city has a sludge dewatering, equipment that takes liquid sludge, and we try to remove as much water out of it as we possibly can. And, given the best that we can do with our technology right now, we get about a product that's about 30% solids, and meaning that, 70% is still water. We produce around 4,500 tons of that material every year. But if you were able to remove water, you'd be able to obviously reduce the amount of tonnage that needs to be hauled and disposed of. The current rate for hauling and disposal is $125 a ton, and the city budgets around $600,000 a year in its operating budget for that. So this study evaluated the feasibility of adding a sludge dryer to our current dewatering processes to reduce that overall water content. But it also helped develop a roadmap of how to best manage biosolids in the 21st century. So tonight's presentation is going to walk us through the phases of what this plan may look like over the next 30 years. And through multiple workshops with the consultants and staff, we really focused on the council's goals in regards to the carbon footprint and fossil fuels, and how some of these processes that we're going to be talking about actually can generate some energy that may be used at the wastewater treatment plant. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bill and Colin from Brown and Caldwell.
Thank you, Aaron. Mr. Mayor, City Council, thank you for having us this evening. We appreciate the opportunity to work on this project. We're working with communities across the Granite State in New England, dealing with very similar challenges. Aaron touched on a few of the high points, right, like 2030 sustainability goals, opportunities where we can work with local companies for managing some of these potential solutions, and most importantly, building a roadmap that the city can use as a tool as drivers change, sludge crises develop or don't develop. So really, ultimately, we worked with city staff as well as the Department of Environmental Services to develop a report that is useful and multifaceted to make decisions moving forward. So my colleague Bill will take the lead on presenting and stepping us through this super exciting wastewater project.
All right, let's talk about poop on a Thursday night. All right, so I've got a fair number of slides here. I'll go through them kind of quickly, and if people have follow-up comments or questions, just feel free to ask. Again, recognizing that these were ARPA funds, we'll go through the project background, talk about the different alternatives that we looked at, and then ultimately our recommendation for how to move forward. So for this project, our kind of task for Brown and Caldwell was to do a feasibility analysis of putting in a dryer at the wastewater treatment plant at Aaron's facility, looking at costs and other considerations, and potentially looking at biogas utilization. This was an interesting project to work on. You guys have very laudable energy goals. You're 100% renewable electricity by 2030 and 100% renewable thermal by 2050. That put this project in a kind of a unique context because dryers are typically fired by fossil fuels. So it was a fun project to work on because with your renewable energy goals framing it kind of made for an interesting kind of thought experiment as we work through it. So biosolids, not something a lot of people think about a lot of times, but like everything else, costs are going up, there's inflation. We heard about the pressures on landfills, there's driver shortages, lots of things are leading towards higher and higher costs, along with regulatory challenges. So the city's already seen that. The last time they put the biosolids management contract out, the unit cost went up 47%, from $85 a wet ton up to in the range of $125 a wet ton. That contract's good through the end of 2025, or through 2025. So the next time that's rebid, if it goes up another 47%, that's kind of the gray bar there. That's, you're looking at $1 million a year just for biosolids management for the wastewater treatment plant. If it were to go up, if it were to double to get on the order of $250 a wet ton, that is not outside the realm of possibility of what some communities are paying in New England. Then you're looking at, it's like 60% of the overall budget for or I think there's 50% of the overall budget for the plant just on biosolids management. So to avoid that, there's some things you can do. We'll talk a little bit about the context that's leading to that first. So again, this is kind of what's being done with biosolids in New Hampshire in general. As Aaron said, a lot of it is just landfilled or burned, but there are opportunities to beneficially use material. And kind of in a broader sense, there is a push, the cost to farmers of inorganic fertilizers, urea, things like that. The prices for those are going way up, so people are looking for cheaper alternatives like biosolids. So there is some movement towards looking for biosolids as an alternative to inorganic fertilizers. But a lot of the trends are kind of in the other direction of having less demand. So there's limited landfill capacity, as we heard about, particularly for wet waste in landfills. We're all familiar with landfills having limited capacity. Particularly high moisture waste can cause stability issues in landfills, so they're particularly limited in their ability to accept biosolids at landfills if they're not dried. And then I think we've all heard about, PFAS, forever chemicals, and there's been lots of regulatory movement around the region, around the country, around PFAS. Particularly here in New Hampshire, so strict drinking water and groundwater standards, that's usually what starts with PFAS and then kind of goes up the chain kind of to other products. DES is obligated to have soil screening standards by November 2023, and that's going to kind of push to have a biosolids limit in New Hampshire. I also mentioned the ambient air PFAS limits, because some of the technologies you're looking at might fall under that, and you have to be aware of PFAS considerations. So, we have relationships with all the companies that manage biosolids in this area. Reach out to all of them, and they're all saying we want dried material. So again, the plant is currently producing dewatered cake, as it's known. Don't eat it, but so it's like a dry. It's 70% water, so it's still it's kind of moist soil consistency. But if you put it through a dryer, you get up to 90%, very little water, 90% solids, 10% moisture, and that is just much easier to handle either in a farmer's field or in the landfill. And these are people that get paid by the ton to accept the material, and they're saying we want less tonnage, basically. So we know they're kind of, they have real strong drivers to say that. So again, the current management of biosolids in Keene of just taking this dewatered cake and paying a company to send it to a landfill just isn't sustainable. It's entirely reliant on landfills. There's limited capacity in those landfills. They're saying they do not want high moisture waste. And then there's PFAS pressures on the landfills themselves from the leachate coming out of the landfills. And then potentially for PFAS regulations on biosolids that could impact the management of biosolids in the future. So through this study, we looked at kind of biosolids management for the 21st century. What's kind of the new state of things that we can do to bring management to kind of a modern approach. So this is just nothing magical about the numbers here, but the rough idea of what we're talking about is potentially moving in phases here. With the first phase being a thermal dryer, we can talk more about that. That really gets you volume reduction. So the 4,500 wet tons that Aaron was talking about, you're bringing that down significantly and much less to deal with. You could potentially put in anaerobic digestion. With that, you generate biogas, which can be used to generate renewable energy, either electricity or heat for the dryer. Helps to stabilize the solids, and you also have fewer solids to manage. And then if PFAS regulations were to push in that direction, you could potentially move to thermal PFAS treatment through some additional technology that we'll touch on. So phase one, drying, is our primary recommendation for today is moving forward with the thermal dryer. So the idea behind a dryer, again, you're taking this cake, it's mostly water. You put it in a dryer. This is the particular type of dryer that we're talking about here. There's a little animation in a second. Goes to the dryer, heats it up, evaporates off the water, and on the right side there, you end up with most of the water gone and mostly just solids there. The estimated capital for this kind of facility, a new building, some ancillary equipment, is around $11 million. So you guys have these laudable energy goals, and drying will help with climate goals. So if you look at the size of these circles on this page is the kind of climate impact, so the metric tons of CO2 equivalent. So just to give you an idea, the carbon associated with all the power used at the wastewater treatment plant is that kind of beige circle. The amount associated with hauling that cake to the landfill is the upper circle there. If you dry it, you've got fewer trucks going out, and so you're going to reduce that significantly. This big brown circle is the impact from landfilling biosolids. So when you're putting biosolids or any organic matter, food waste, into a landfill, you're generating significant amounts of methane. Methane is a potent greenhouse gas. If you can keep that organic matter out of the landfills, like folks are doing with organic bans around the country, you're not generating that methane. So with a dried biosolids product, you can continue to send it to landfill, but you also have other options where you can be using that material and not having this significant climate impact. So again, going back to kind of looking at how to do a dryer, but with renewable energy, it kind of came out to 4 options that we considered. With the solar panels right next to the plant by the airport, electricity is the obvious one. That's not as common to be done, but it is an option. Biomass, Froling Energy here in town has biomass boilers. You could use that to heat up use the biomass to burn to heat up water to provide the energy for the heat for your dryer. Biogas from anaerobic digesters we'll maybe talk about a bit, and syngas from a pyrolysis unit is another option. So those are kind of the world of possibilities of generating energy to dry material without using fossil fuels. We looked at very different types, a thin film dryer, a belt dryer. I won't go into a ton of the details on those. I won't give you, if you'd like to read the report, please do. But there's basically, we lump these two different kinds of dryers, and on the left there you see they're kind of either powered by electricity, biomass, or biogas or syngas with different representative technologies. Looked at the life cycle costs for these compared to the status quo of just continuing to landfill solids, and the thin film dryer and some of the other alternatives came out as appealing, with the thin film dryer having the best life cycle cost. So here's kind of a spiffy little animation. This is what a thin film dryer does. It rotates, there's a feed inlet, the solids come in, there's kind of a heating jacket there, there's these rakes that rotate, the solids go through, a bunch of ancillary equipment. The heating medium here would be water, or thermal oil that would be heated up by electricity. You've got the dewater cake coming in, and on the back side you've got a conveyor taking out the dried material, and various other ancillary equipment associated with it. So that's kind of the technology we're talking about. Out the back end, you get a product that, again, you could potentially, landscapers, soil blenders, farmers could use it, or you can just continue to bring it to a landfill. This is a common practice all around the country of beneficially using biosolids, dried biosolids products. Looking a little further down the road, additional triggers could, you could be looking at additional phases of bringing in new technologies. So anaerobic digesters it's common technology used around the country and around the world, been in use for over 100 years. Basically, you take the organic matter, put it in these big tanks, and out of that you're generating biogas, which is essentially renewable natural gas. And you can use that to power boilers or create electricity. So that's another phase that certain federal incentives could come in that could push you towards the direction of considering that. You also have the option for accepting food waste into digesters or solids from other plants. You can bring those in, so it's potentially a revenue generating, both from the energy and then from the tip fees you get from accepting outside materials. And if you needed to treat for PFAS, there's a couple of technologies like pyrolysis and gasification that you can look at that can help to reduce the level of PFAS in the biosolids. There's kind of a lingering question of if you're really destroying the PFAS through these. I only throw this up to say that our firm, Brown & Caldwell, is involved in a lot of the research looking at what is the fate and transport of PFAS through these different technologies. There's still research to be done. That's why we're kind of recommending these technologies for a little bit further out in the time horizon. But our recommendation for now is to move forward with a thermal dryer.
Questions? I saw Councilor Johnson. Can you hit her microphone?
If you're dry, oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. You're still learning. What happens to the water? You know, you're drying this out, and is the water reusable or no?
Yeah, some will go up as vapor, but most of it will be condensated. It'll be recycled back to the plant and just processed with the water flow, and it'll go out with the outfall at the plant.
Thank you.
For Councilor Madison.
Thank you, Your Honor. For the thin film dryer, that's really just a glorified centrifuge for the biosolids.
It's similar. A centrifuge is widely used for the dewatering step at wastewater treatment plants. It's not the high. It's a very slow turn actually on this one. It's a heated jacket. Kind of a similar concept, but at the end you're getting a really, really dry product because you're adding all that heat to it.
Similar concept for sure, yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councilor Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And remind the councilors to turn on your mics and then also stand up for the cameras.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
What is your goal rate? I don't know how you rate this. Is it like gallons per hour, or how do you measure?
The throughput through the dryer?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, typically it's wet. It's pounds of water evaporated per hour is the kind of the unit of measure of a dryer. And you're asking what the specific number is? I don't have it off the top of my head,
I'm just
but-
asking how you do it.
Yeah.
So it's the amount of water coming out. It's not the amount of going through and then what's coming out at the end.
That's related.
That's a different measurement.
It is related, but the amount of water that's in the material coming in can fluctuate. So when you're designing these, you're looking at pounds of water evaporated over time.
And essentially what we did is we look at the sludge generated at the plant currently, right, our 2020 standards. We take that out 20 years because it's a 20-year build-out from when you install the equipment. So we look like how our wastewater flow is going to change at the plant with new development, additional flows, and we take that solids production on the front end to see how much needs to be processed, and then continue to the back end, the different water evaporated that we're talking about now.
Thank you. And one more, Mr. Mayor. The digester tanks that you showed, that's very old technology, right? Those live organisms you're putting in, they're actually small bugs, right? They're live bugs, and you have to find ways to keep them alive and be careful what people put into the sewer because it could kill those bugs and everything else. And then there's also an offshoot. There's an after effect that comes that you have to address too from the digestion, correct?
Yeah, so they're digesters, just like your stomach is a digester.
Yes.
Works in a very similar way. There's microorganisms there, bacteria and archaea that break down, your food basically, and break it down into CO2 and methane. You can capture that biogas, clean it up, and then use it to make energy or electricity.
But you have to watch your temperature, your pH, and everything else to keep those bugs alive.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Once you get a kind of steady state, you want to keep it.
So it's a very sensitive issue.
Yeah, they're standard pieces of equipment. You do have to watch it closely, but digesters are run successfully at hundreds of plants around the country.
Yeah, I would say old but very proven technology.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you.
Councilor Williams.
Can you give us an idea of the scale of how much methane could be generated using these biodigesters?
Yeah, so from digestion at this plant, you'd be able to power. You'd have enough biogas for most of the needs of the dryer itself. So it's on that scale of the amount of amount of methane that you're generating is about the amount that you would need for taking that dewatered cake and bringing it up to 90% solid.
And that's just with municipal sludge, right? We mentioned the opportunity of potentially bringing in other sludges or food waste if you decide to do co-digestion in those digesters, and that kind of changes that whole scheme where you'd probably have more digester gas production that might better fulfill the obligations of running that dryer full-time and meeting those needs.
Councilor Ormerod.
Thank you, Mayor Hansel. Boy, you had me at dry out the filter cakes. Of course, I have a degree in chemical engineering. I wish everyone else here was a chemical engineer as well to really understand how beautiful and elegant this solution is. But on the filter cakes, does the PFAS concentrate in the solid or the liquid phase? So what happens? Would we still be delivering the PFAS in the solid phase to the landfill?
After it was dried?
Yes.
Yeah, so most of it will still be, if you put it through a dryer, you will have some coming out in the condensate, potentially some in the exhaust, but most of it would still be in the solids, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Another, if I may. I thought I saw the number of 11 million capital investment for the dryer to make the dry cakes, which is wonderful. $5 million for the digesters as the second phase. Why isn't the second phase the first phase, since it's less capital intense?
I think because the real reason, it doesn't get you out of, on the back end, having a material that these companies want to manage and that there's a real obvious home for. So digestion is a great technology, but given the situation in New Hampshire and surrounding states for biosolids management, you really need to have a dried product. So kind of step one, really, the immediate need is to have a dried product.
And we talked about, right, the financial aspect of it too. I think the hauling contract is good through 24, is that correct, Bill?
Yeah, 25.
So by the time you would have to construct those digesters, you wouldn't have that same mass reduction as far as you would with a dryer, and you're in a position at that point where you're going to be renegotiating your hauling contract or putting that back out for bid, so those costs could go up, and you wouldn't see the same cost savings.
Thank you.
I was going to see anybody down, yeah, Councilor Greenwald?
I've been around long enough that there have been several other schemes, ideas brought forth. So a simple question, what does this cost, and what is the payback? How long will it take to break even?
Yeah, so the estimated capital cost, and this is the preliminary budget number. As part of our scope, we were just getting a high-level number, but it's on the order of $11 million.
$11 million?
Yes.
For the dryer.
American.
US dollars.
US dollars.
Yes, thank you. And the break even?
And the break-even point, I don't recall offhand, but you're ahead of where you are from the status quo. So it's a break-even point of, over the life cycle of the dryer, it will pay for itself. But it's not a 3-year payback or anything. But it keeps you out of the risk of having a material that literally you'd have nowhere to go with. That's kind of the main, a lot of people put in dryers not for the return on investment. It's because you have a less risky material to use. You have more management options with the material on the back end. It's material you can bring more places. If you continue with dewatered cake, a few years down the road, there may be nowhere to go with it, and Aaron can't run his plant if you can't move the biosolids off the back end.
And I would add that typically in wastewater treatment technologies, we're not even looking at equipment that has any potential cost return or cost savings, right? It's an infrastructure investment that we're needing to do for additional treatment or to meet effluent requirements. So this scenario with the dryer and cost offsetting, you look at that $600,000 annual cost for disposal and managing that financial aspect to get to the reduced ROI of what it is.
Okay, Councilor Remy, then Councilor Madison.
Thank you. I'm also curious for the payback period and understanding what that would look like. If there's any way we can get that number. Yeah. Can the anaerobic digesters take the dewatered cake and process that?
Yeah, and it's, the return on investment number is in the report. I could provide that to you if you, not in the slides, but in the full report. So if you're looking for some light reading, but we could get you the number. Yeah, so digestion actually goes upstream of the dewatering device. So you'd put, you'd take your thickened solids on the plant, you put them in the digester, out of the digester, then they go into the screw presses they have to make dewatered cake, less of it because some of it has gone up as gas, and then you'd put it into a dryer.
I said Counselor Madison, and then we'll go Counselor Giacomo.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, so two-part question, if you don't mind. So just to clarify, and to piggyback on Counselor Remy's question, so the dryer is mainly to reduce volume, which helps us get over the hump of our current contract with Turnkey. And then the anaerobic digester is to take the place of landfilling these biosolids, if I understand correct.
It's putting what the digester gives you is it reduces your volume further. You have fewer solids that are then going into the dryer to be dried. And then you also get renewable energy out of it, the biogas, and you have the opportunity to accept food waste, other organic residuals, solids from other communities that are in a similar position of not having anywhere to go with their biosolids.
And then the second part to my question, which is probably more for Mr. Costa, how long is our current contract with Turnkey for the disposal of biosolids good for?
I believe our current contract expires in 2025 with a number of one-year renewals.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So I believe, I would have to take a look, I don't know the number exactly off the top of my head, but I believe the contract is good for 2020 through 2025, and then there's some options to renew at one-year increments for 3 or 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Giacomo.
Thank you, Your Honor. I learned tonight that I need to talk to Mr. Costa and get myself a tour. So the current technology we're using for dewatering right now, if I'm not mistaken, is we're just using a filter press then basically currently? Is that the current technology to remove water? I guess it's an errant question.
Yeah, sure. In 2016, we upgraded from belt filter presses to screw presses.
Okay. So yeah, I think I remember that one coming through the CIP on that. So, okay, so the limitation on the amount of water that we can remove with our current technology, it's a mechanical and technological restriction rather than a cost restriction. We can't just press it a little harder. I'd be embarrassed to say I'm also a chemical engineer and I'm using the term press it harder, but it's, it is a mechanical and actual functional difficulty in doing that, not just a financial thing, right?
Yes, that's correct. We're at about the limit of that technology. We did make some improvements when we went from the belt filter presses, which would give us a solids content about 18 to 22, 23%. So now with the screw presses, we're up 27, 30%. So there was some improvement there, but yes, it's technology limited.
It's Archimedes' principle, if you really want to get into it.
Yes. Counselor Roberts.
Thank you, Your Honor. Listen to the presentation and what's going on and what the other problems that the state of New Hampshire and other places have with chemical disposal, leakage in the ground, heavy metals going, other toxins going. So right now, the contract runs out in 2025, but there's no guarantee that any one of these companies will pick it up because of the risk of no one wanting that. And if we don't look at coming up with something, we could be in 2025 with all this waste material and have no place to put it except try to find a place in Keene to store it until we come up with a good way to treat it to the point that a farmer or someone else in a landfill would be willing to take it.
Yes, I mean, yeah, that's why we're looking at what we're looking at is because what are the options that we have, in the future here? Again, landfills, it's not a desirable material based on that moisture content. They have to mix it with their municipal trash and to create a, stable landfill. So it's tough for them to manage, and as I think our consultants described, it's not a desirable landfilling material. So we are looking to get that material from that 30% up to 80, 90, 95% solids, where it may be more desirable and we may have better potential avenues for disposal.
I think that is a very accurate assessment of a potential risk. I think we feel, based on some experiences that have recently happened in New England, it's likely that if Keene was facing that crisis, the entire Granite State would be facing that crisis, and there would be political pressures to help make some sort of resolution. The state of Maine recently went through some extreme challenges where that essentially happened, and they couldn't take biosolids to their landfills. It was a very stressful time for a lot of treatment plants, a lot of cities, towns, but ultimately, because it was a statewide problem, there was at least an interim, we'll call it, solution that is developed so that there is a place for it to go. But it is definitely something that is building across New England, New Hampshire, where we all live.
Okay. Any further questions? Thank you very much for the presentation. And,
Thanks for the
your work
questions.
on this.
Yeah, thank you very much for the great discussion, too. I appreciate all the questions.
Councilor Greenwald.
So what happens next? Finance?
So,
MSFI?
yeah,
Voting? What?
well, this will be part of our CIP conversation, for sure. And we will have further conversations in January when we kick that off. We'll be looking at finding a way to put the dryer project into the CIP.
All right. All good. We'll move on to, we have a nomination, number one.
We have a nomination for the Heritage Commission. We have Julie Emnith, regular member in slot 1, term to expire December 31st, 2026. We have Susan DeGidio, alternate member in slot 9, whose term is to expire December 31st, 2026. We have Rose Carey as an alternate in slot 10, whose term to expire December 31st, 2026. Can you turn on your microphone, please? Thank you.
Yeah, we can, why don't you read them again?
We have the nominations for the Heritage Commission. We have Julie Emnith, Susan DeGidio, and Rose Carey, all's term to expire December 31st, 2026.
All right, thanks, Bill. And we'll table those to the next regular meeting. We have one communication, number one.
We have a communication from Attorney Michael Bentley, representing the Monadnock Tea Hanger Corporation, for a request to renew existing lease.
And this will be referred to the Planning Licenses and Development Committee. So our next three items do require suspension of, did I miss you?
Yes.
I did. City Manager, sorry about that.
All right, I have several updates for you this evening. Sorry. I wanted to give you an update on the body-worn camera program. The police department went through the installation and training during the week of July 10th and went live with implementation on Friday, July 14th. So far, we've had no major issues and everything has gone quite well. And as I say that, I'm going to knock on this fake wood. They have already proven, the camera system has already proven very useful in resolving what could have been citizen complaints in a couple of instances. The supervisor was able to easily review the video and see what was being alleged simply did not happen. So they have already been useful. In addition to being activated manually, cameras include several safety features that automatically activate the cameras. If an officer draws their handgun from its holster, if an officer begins to run, engages in a jostled movement, such as during a fight, activates lights and or sirens in the car, lies flat for 10 seconds. This feature is known as Officer Down, and it notifies all cars in the area that the officer is in need of immediate assistance. So those are really great safety features of the equipment as well. I also wanted to give you an update regarding the Martel Court pump station emergency repair. The wastewater treatment plant well, as we talked about tonight, treats 6 million gallons of wastewater per day and operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All wastewater from Keene and the town of Marlborough is pumped to the treatment facility via the Martel Court pump station. And there's no bypass of this pumping station that allows the station to be taken offline for repairs. On July 10th, the station experienced a seal failure on the gate valve on the discharge side of the pumps, and raw sewage began to fill the pump room. Fortunately, this room is equipped with sump pumps, and we quickly brought in additional pumps. But as a result of that, I declared this event an emergency and notified the council it would be necessary to make emergency repairs outside of our normal process. With the assistance of a contractor, we were able to make some temporary repairs. To make more permanent repairs, the station will need to be offline and a bypass pumping system will need to be put in place prior to shutting down the flow. This will be done in 2 phases. Phase 1 will be a temporary bypass that allows staff to make necessary repairs, and Phase 2 will be a permanent bypass pumping system that will remain in place that will allow staff to isolate the station for repairs. But Phase 2 will need to be incorporated in the upcoming capital planning process. So another item in the CIP for conversation this year. And I did send out an email about this, but in case anyone is interested in attending the next MSFI meeting, the Keene State College and the city potential partnership will be discussed with the committee. There's an opportunity to partner with Keene State College to invest in infrastructure and building improvements at the Keene Ice facility to support a Keene State College varsity program. The program would be built around available ice time and would not move any of our existing programs. So it would be the open ice that's not currently being used. I know that's really important. The last time we had this conversation, this is a great opportunity not only for enrollment at Keene State College, but also just for revenue for Keene Ice, which has been, they've struggled financially over the years to be able to support the system. So I think this potentially could be a good win-win, but the beginning of the conversation will be at your next MSFI. This last week, we met with Senator Donovan Fenton. Last legislative session, Senator Fenton put forward SB 110, as you know, on our behalf. This bill was recently signed into law and was the first substantial change in welfare legislation in probably 20 years. We met with Senator Fenton last week and began a discussion around potential legislation for the upcoming session. We brainstormed a few ideas, but we will be working on drafting something to pass on to him in the upcoming weeks, and I'll keep you posted. We're looking for a couple of other areas that might be some easy wins for us, and as we have a pretty active group right now that's willing to support some more changes, so this is a great opportunity. As you know, Keene became one of the first municipalities in the state to use the state's homeless management information system. We've now requested access to the state's coordinated entry system, which is a module in the program that will allow us to enter homeless individuals who have been homeless for at least 14 days. These individuals are prioritized for rehousing, and a joint case conferencing with agencies in our region occurs. I attended the first session on joint case conferencing a couple weeks ago, and I think this is going to be extremely helpful for us because right now, if we see someone and they are homeless, we can directly enter them into that system for more immediate assistance. And then I wanted to give you an update on some trail signs. I recently executed an MOU with the state to install multi-use trail signs identifying the Ashwillet Rail Trail that crosses over Route 101 on the South Bridge owned by the state and the Cheshire Trail that crosses Route 9, 10, 12 on the city-owned North Bridge. These signs will be installed within the state right-of-way. This was a request that was brought forward by Chuck Redfern to one of our committees, and so he was very happy to hear that this is moving forward. And just a quick update on the 21 and 21 program. 6 properties representing 11 homes have or will soon receive weatherization measures, as well as HUD housing, quality housing standard upgrades or repairs. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago regarding a PR effort that the city is about to take on around the progress to date. So you'll be seeing some social media in the upcoming months highlighting specific projects and all of our partners, including those who bought tax credits to help fund this project. Southwestern Community Services has really been vital to the success of this program to date, and soon we'll be looking for more homes to be able to go into. And then as a follow-up of related to a conversation at PLD, during PLD's conversation regarding small cell wireless, there was a suggestion related to the purchase of an EMF reader, and we did purchase an EMF reader. We split the cost of this purchase. It was $400 in total, so $200 from my budget, $200 from the library. And it's now available in the library for loan. So if someone is concerned and they want to go ahead and get that piece of equipment for the library, they can take that out. And then just quick mention, CIP and council goals. The capital planning process has begun just initially. We've had the first sort of kickoff meeting. We are going to come back as a group a couple of times during the process. Usually I review the capital planning documents individually with each department. I will do that, but because it's going to be very difficult to get the capital budget where it needs to be, we're going to add some additional larger staff meetings to work on the timing of projects, because we will need to make several changes. The document will go to the council in January, and since this document plans out the next 7 years plus of capital expenses, it's important our investments are tied with the master plan, and more specifically the council goals, which is why we are moving into the council goals conversation. And we have set aside 2 nights to provide at the library for workshops, to provide updates on the progress we've made on those council goals, and then a conversation about any changes the council is interested in making. And I'm planning to use the same format, which everyone seemed to like. We've tried several formats. The last time we had these council goals conversations at the library, we met in small tables by topic area, and we referenced documents that have been adopted by the city that are tied to the capital plan, and then we sort of tied all of those things together. It was a good workshop because there was a lot of conversation at each of the tables, and so I'm planning to use the same process this year unless I hear differently for a different type of format, and that is it for me.
All right, thank you. Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you. I was the one that recommended the EMF reader. It was a suggestion that I thought we should think about in feasibility, and you made it happen, so thank you very much. I didn't know it was going to happen that fast.
All right. Our next 3 items are going to require suspension of the rules. If you want to act on them tonight, they're time sensitive. And so I'm looking for a motion from Councilor Powers, a second by Councilor Bosley, please, on this suspension.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to suspend Section 26 of the Rules of Order to act upon the next 3 items, which are time sensitive because of the programming and financing that's necessary to keep moving forward. Remembering we've had a few weeks off here, so now we're going to pay for that time. But a little extra time tonight's fine.
Second.
And we have a motion from Councilor Powers, seconded by Councilor Bosley. This motion on suspending the rules will require a 2/3 roll call vote. Is there any discussion on the suspension? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy?
Yes.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes.
Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Roberts?
Yes.
Counselor Amarad?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yep.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
And that is unanimous. The rules are suspended, so I'm looking to Councilor Powers for a motion, please. Councilor Remy for a second.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to recommend the city manager be authorized to negotiate and execute an agreement with Rescue Inc. for a period of 90 days and an amount not to exceed $45,000
for EMS, emergency medical services, backup services to the city of Keene.
Second.
And we have a motion from Counselor Powers, seconded by Counselor Remy. Counselor Powers, or the city manager, who's addressing this?
Yes, I will. Well, I'll work with the chief. Chief, you want to start?
Sure, absolutely. So as the written request states, we're in a position where Rescue Inc., who was initially our partner for mutual aid after Deluzio was unable to provide services, Rescue Inc. was here for 90 days. That expired in August. That put us on August 1st. That put us in a position that we needed to have an agreement in place for backup services. And importantly, backup services are not only for a large call volume, backup services are also important if we go to a fire or working a large incident, because our firefighters are obviously cross-trained. So anytime that if we were going to a large fire, we need an ambulance to, one, help any citizen that may be injured or harmed, but also any of our firefighters are harmed on scene. So it's just not call volume, that's a whole nother layer to it. We looked at many options, and we know that this is a very important topic and a very complex topic. And we went through every possibility, and we feel the best option was to keep Rescue Inc. here in the city. Rescue Inc., as you're probably aware, is a nonprofit company. They lost quite a bit of money in the 90 days that they were present, helping stabilize the region after Deluzio was unable to respond. So what they're asking for is enough money. It's just for the salary for the employees. They're not putting any other costs into it. It's just to cover 90 days of salary for their employees to keep an ambulance in the city. So that ambulance has been in the city since August 1st at Central Station. They staff that with advanced level EMTs. The other part of that, which is, again, so very important, is our agreement with them also brings into play the vast resources of Rescue Inc. They have 14 physical ambulances. They're well-staffed. So anytime that we would have a large call volume, anytime that we need more resources for any reason, it's not just the one ambulance. We also benefit tremendously from having access to the rest of their resources. And within that agreement, we've worked very closely to develop a good plan where if we become busy, they'll relocate an ambulance into the firehouse at Stoddard because they also cover the Chesterfield area. So they always relocate ambulance closer to us. So if they are needed in the city, they can respond more quickly. And that arrangement has worked very well. So this request is enough money to cover what they anticipate they will be losing over that period of time. And the fee structure for that is a maximum of $15,000 per month for a 90-day period. And so we came up with that calculation by taking a look at how many calls they are expected to do, what the pay and mix for that call is. So in other words, how much money the ambulance will make, and weighted that against how much the fixed costs of. We know what the ambulance will cost, and we put a little margin in there for safety, and we feel very comfortable with the cap of a maximum of $15,000 a month will allow Rescue Inc. to at least cover their costs, to buy us a window of incredibly important safety and redundancy in the 90 days as we continue to look at all the other options and see what else is going on in the county. And in that time, we're hoping to have a larger, more global system that will be supported countywide through a system and not this hodgepodge of individual agencies helping each other out. So I think that's all I have to say.
City manager?
I'm going to add to that. You know, one of the really important reasons we need to keep Rescue Inc. here is we have 1,000 calls a year for skilled nursing facilities. We do not have the capacity to pick those up. So one of the things that we've been doing, and you know, and this was in the paper, we've been having lots of conversations about ambulance service for not only Keene, but the whole region, the communities that we contract for and those that we partner with. And, you know, with the establishment of the county's ambulance, it's been a very quickly changing picture. because as they are adding on more contracts and picking up both more primary and backup contracts, it changes. And one of the things that the chief and I are working really hard to do is to have a conversation that says, these are the number of calls that we know we currently have countywide. These are the number of towns that have resources to respond to those calls. These are the percentage of calls that usually require a paramedic. This is the cost that it will take to service those calls and create a financial model that would sustain it in the future. I mean, you don't have to look very far to see ambulance services really struggling, because responding to 911 calls does not make money. We are subsidizing it. And every call that we go to costs us money, which is why we have to pay something to Rescue Inc. to keep them here. Their board's not going to let them stay here for free and keep losing money. And they've been a great partner, but now, we have to really focus on a plan for the future. So, the hard questions that we're asking is, and we'll continue to ask of the county, is how many employees do you have? How many are paramedics? How many ambulances? How many contracts? How many more contracts can you take on? How many calls per employee are you calculating? And what is your financial model? What are you basing that on? And until we really understand that, until they have made their decisions in terms of the number of contracts, we really can't sign an agreement with them for backup services, because every day there's a new contract that is coming into play, or every week right now, for the county. And so Rescue Inc. is dependable. We've been working with them, and they will provide the stability that we need while we continue to have these conversations. But we really have to know those things. If you are going to create an agreement with a partner, you have to feel confident in the numbers and the capacity and the ability to service that agreement. And it has to be a mutual agreement. It can't be a one-way agreement. And so we had a meeting again recently. I think we've made some progress. We've asked for continued meetings. We've asked for a lot of meetings really quickly, because we're hoping to better understand just exactly where the county wants to be at the end of all this, how many towns they want to serve, and what's their capacity to do so, and what they're estimating for future costs. We know what our cost is. We know what Rescue Inc.'s costs are. And we're trying really hard to figure out all the rest. And so that's where we're at. And, I hope that you'll support this contract with Rescue Inc. It'll give us a bit more time to work out some of these details, and we'll be back.
And I'd put it more bluntly than that. I think that what the county's done, whether justified or not, the disruption that we've had in ambulance service now is costing Keene taxpayers. I mean, there's no doubt that you have to do this. We need backup ambulance service, but I'm so disappointed by this whole rollout. And I hope, certainly, that this is the last time that Keene taxpayers have to make up for these unfortunate decisions that have been made by other entities. Councilor Roberts.
Thank you, Your Honor. The problem I have with this going forward, I support this, but what I think the county is doing is totally unethical and is going to cost people's lives. The county is taking money from the American Rescue or whatever one it has and lowballing these prices for people to get in the contract. If it was a private company, it would be illegal, but the county is doing this. Now, what happens 2 years from now when they come up for new contracts? The county says, oh yeah, by the way, we don't have any money to subsidize these low rates. We still got to pay for all our ambulances. We got to pay for our new overhead, our new buildings. And oh yeah, by the way, your prices may go up 50 or 75%. Then all of a sudden, Keene, because we can't keep funding everything, has a lower EMT. Now it's going to cost people some lives because of people are paying for money and someone wants to have more power or expand. This isn't about money. This is about the welfare of people in Keene, in our surrounding areas, that's going to be for the next 2 years. We're looking good, but that money is running out. And like I said, people are going to die because we're not going to have available ambulance system, because you could read it in the paper why.
Thanks. Councilor Greenwald.
Oh, on again. Okay. This potential agreement is for a limited period of time? Because as we're going about bashing the county, I would really like to hear from the county. This is not the forum to be doing it.
Councilor Madison.
Thank you, Your Honor. In the last few weeks, I've become intimately familiar with the capabilities of Keene's EMS program, and it's really impressive what they can do. And I shudder to think what the outcome would have been that day a couple weeks ago, had we not had both Keene Fire but also Rescue Inc., who responded to the scene, available. I'm not sure the outcome would have been the same way it is. So we really need to approve this contract because, like Councilor Roberts says, lives are at stake. And I would agree with Councilor Roberts and yourself, Your Honor, that the way the county has conducted themselves in this whole ambulance issue is really disappointing. The fact that they've used ARPA money to try to put a local business out of business, and they're using that to keep their ambulance service afloat. And in a few years, those communities can expect a rate change. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that the definition of a Ponzi scheme? I mean, it's the way they've negotiated with the city, the way they've conducted themselves, the negotiations and agreements, then them going back on their agreements, and then making new agreements, and then going back on the agreements, it reeks. And I'm just so deeply disappointed in the county. It's time for some real change in the leadership over in County Hall.
All right, Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think the discussion is starting to turn into a long-term, and I believe the chairman only asked for a 90-day contract. Isn't that correct? So we have time to hash this all out. I think the 90-day contract is very important, and I think we should take the vote on that. And then we can go to committee and talk the long-term process.
Yep, city manager.
Yes, Counselor, this is for a 90-day contract, and in the memo, we talk about during the 90 days, we hope to have continued conversations with the county so that we will have a plan at the end of the 90 days and better understand what the future of our ambulance service will look like. I had a great conversation with the county manager, Chris Coates, and he and I have great conversations. And the last meeting that we had, we talked about what we need to feel comfortable. And so I was just going over the list of things we want to understand. And I think those are reasonable questions to ask. And I'm hoping that we can continue to have those conversations. And so that at the end of the 90 days, we will know more and we will be better able to have a plan that will move us into the future.
All right. Yes, Councilor Workman.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to speak just more so directly about Rescue Inc. because they're the topic of conversation right now. As someone who has had to coordinate transportation for folks needing ambulance services and transportation, it also includes stretcher transportation, wheelchair transport in a lot of cases. Rescue Inc. has been reliable. They have demonstrated that they have been able to meet the needs of our city right now and our residents, and the capacity of calls that, if I call, they can meet the need, whether it's the date, the time, whatever it may be. They have shown and demonstrated that they can meet our needs, and I think we should be grateful for them, that they can help us out as a backup. And, yeah, I'm going to support this because it speaks to the safety of our residents. Thank you.
All right. All right. We're going to need, I'm going to need someone to make a motion to amend the current motion on the floor to add sole source to the motion. So maybe, Tom, if you can handle that and reread the entire motion or articulate what the change would be, that would be great.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, I would make a motion to amend the current motion on the floor to authorize to negotiate and execute a sole source agreement with Rescue Inc. for a period of 90 days.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Counselor Powers, second by Counselor Remy. Any discussion on the amendment? Yes? Counselor Ormerod?
Thank you, Mayor Hansel. Just for clarification, we're doing a sole source agreement, so it's more worth it to them to engage in that. Is that why we're doing a sole source?
City
No.
Otherwise,
manager?
why wouldn't we keep our options open?
So the agreement is a sole source with them, meaning they provide the service, but the reason we need to add that language to the motion is because there's a process that we go through at the city to go out for requests for proposals, and we need to be able to waive that by saying you're authorizing a sole source.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the amendment? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote on the amendment? All those in favor? Opposed? That is unanimous. So we have an amended motion on the floor. Any discussion on the amended motion? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? All those in favor? Opposed? That is unanimous. And we have number 2.
And we have a memorandum from the fire chief regarding a contract award for Spec Rescue International. And move to recommend that the city council authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Spec Rescue International to provide.
That's twice now, Bill.
And move to recommend that the city council authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Spec Rescue International to provide specialty rope rescue training.
All right, Counselor Powers for a motion, Counselor Remy for a second, please.
Thank you, Howard. This one, we've covered the suspension, right?
Yes.
Taken it all together, so we're moving to recommend that the city council authorize the city manager to execute the contract.
Your microphone.
I shut, it was on and I shut it off, so. Boy, send us all home. Move to recommend that the city council authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Spec Rescue International to provide specialty rope rescue training.
Second. We have a motion from Counselor Powers, seconded by Counselor Remy. Chief, would you like to address this one?
Sure, thank you. And Spec Rescue is different than Rescue Inc., completely separate companies. So this is for the company that we hired, or hopefully hired, to do our rope technician training. This is last year's Assistance to Firefighter grant, complete grant award. It was about $250,000. This is the instructional fee portion of that. We put it out to bid. They were the sole bidders, which is fine with us. It's an excellent company. I've done a lot of work with them. So they're a fantastic group. And we're looking for that money, which is actually monies from the federal grant, to hire them as a contractor to provide that course for us.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? All those in favor? Opposed? That is unanimous. Number 3.
Is another.
Hold on, Chief. We gotta do
I
our.
apologize.
We have a memorandum from the fire chief regarding contract award with the fire department with SiteMed.
And I'm looking at Counselor Powers for a motion. Counselor Remy for a second, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to recommend that the city council authorize the city manager to execute a contract with SiteMed to provide NFPA 1582 occupational medical physicals.
Second. We have a motion from Counselor Powers, seconded by Counselor Remy.
May I-
Chief,
may I, sir,
Counselor Powers?
just add, probably one of the most important things we're gonna do every year for the members of the fire department, whether they get to one fire or every fire. Very important, and for many, many years, fire service didn't recognize that. And it went unattended, or we figured, oh, I went to see my doctor last month, so that's my physical. Well, it doesn't work, because they're susceptible to all kinds of issues, as we can show these days, so. Thanks, Chief, for going out and getting an outfit that's been able to come in, because that's the other part of this problem. That's why we're here with the rules suspended. There's very few organizations that are available and will come here and get this done for us in a reasonable amount of time. Thank you.
Chief?
Absolutely, to amplify the point about the importance of the physicals of firefighters, right? As soon as you sign the line of being a firefighter, your chances of cancer increase tenfold in many cases. Also for cardiac health, it's a damaging job on body, mind, and soul sometimes. So as part of the requirements is an annual physical. It's a very comprehensive physical. We're very fortunate to find a great vendor. The vendor we had previously was very good. They were unable to provide the services, so we went to RFP. This company came through. Our interactions with them have been tremendous. They're working very well with Chester Medical Center to do some pre-testing. We're able to go through the testing services they offer, and they have some very good advanced testing for early cancer. This ultrasound of certain organs that tend to be problematic for firefighters and cancer, and it's a very comprehensive physical, which is, again, beyond invaluable. So that's what this award to award them the money to continue with the contract, and also say we were able to enter a 3-year contract with them and received quite a bit of savings in that, and as well, because it is hard to find such vendors, we contacted other fire departments, including Brattleboro, and they'll be using the same vendor, and we were able to achieve a little economy of scale savings with that arrangement as well. So we're actually able to bring the cost down for this quite a bit by working with them. It's an excellent contractor, and we're in line with them for 3 years, which is a blessing, because they are hard to find.
All right. Any questions or comments? Yes, Counselor Remy?
Just one, the dollar amount isn't actually in this one.
And I apologize, I don't have that immediately available.
Could we table it and move on?
No, you need to act on it, but I don't think we need that number for the motion. I think we can.
Yeah,
If we could move on and revisit it, I'm sure before we close up, I can get the number, if that's helpful. That's the one, if that's,
Well, let's just, you think it's a 3-minute thing, or is it a 10-minute thing?
I just have to watch it fumble through my computer for a moment.
All right, well, why don't you go ahead, and
Okay.
we'll take just a brief 2-minute recess.
And I'll also say that actually that number was presented during the budget presentations, because we had that at that time, so that number was captured in our budget increase, so.
It's in the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
All right.
Yeah, it's the same company, same number, and as a matter of fact, our argument for the budget line increase was because this was the sole vendor, so that number is captured in that 3-year contract.
Well, let's just follow up and make sure we send out to the entire council what that number is, so if anyone wants to take action on that, they have that opportunity. Okay? Any further discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? All those in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. We have number 4.
We have a memorandum from Mary Howe, the Finance Director Treasurer, regarding acceptance of donations.
All right, I'm looking to Counselor Powers for a motion. Counselor Remy for a second, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move that the city council accept the donations in the amount of $5,075, and the city manager be authorized to use each donation in the manner specified by the donor, and I'll explain it each when I get a second.
Second. We have a motion from Counselor Powers, seconded by Counselor Remy. Counselor Powers.
So, once again, we are so fortunate to have so many good friends to the city. We're getting $5,000 from the Kiwanis Foundation, which will purchase 10 bicycles and helmets for children to use when they register through Parks and Rec Department with programming, and they get the training, they're able to use it. And as you know, we've got our members of the Mountain Bike Association that continue to get money towards this project with the new park out, Wheelock Park. So that's just excellent. And we get an additional $75 donation from Leslie Peterson in appreciation for assistance in a recent visit to the city of Keene, and that's to the fire department. Thank you.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? All those in favor? Opposed? That is unanimous, and thank you very much. It's great to have that kind of donation. So, we don't have any resolutions tonight, but all of you did get a letter on your desk this evening, and unfortunately, I have to announce that this is going to be likely Counselor Johnson's last meeting with us. She's going to be moving closer to family, and certainly on behalf of myself, I want to thank Counselor Johnson for her 3.5 years of service. It's been a pleasure to serve with you, and I've personally really appreciated, and I know all of us have really appreciated your contributions to this city council and to your constituents. I think you've been a great advocate for anyone who's contacted you with a concern. You've always tried to raise their voice to a higher level, and that's something that I will try to use myself as much as possible, and I'll think of you when I do it. And so the city staff and the city council, we have a few gifts for you up here. If you want to join me up here, I can present them to you. So I understand that the staff got you a really nice local art piece from the Hannah Grimes Marketplace, which we all hope that you will hang in your new home and use to remember us all by. And we also got you some flowers. And as is tradition, when a counselor ends their service with the city, the mayor presents them with a key to the city. And I hope that you will wear this with pride and know that you are welcome back here anytime, and that we all appreciate your great service. So thank you so much, Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, sir. Oh my, thank you, everyone. You've just been a lovely group with which to have meetings. I've appreciated our teams. You know, we're a sharp bunch of people, and I know you'll continue to be so. Thank you. It's been a blessing. And Councilor Greenwald, it was good I had that conversation with you in the beginning.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, folks.
Yep.
May I say something as well?
Yep.
Counselor, before you sit down, I just want to say on behalf of PLD as well, we really appreciate you, getting to serve with you over the last several years, and I really have loved having you on our committee and the experience that you've brought.
Thank you so much.
We'll definitely help you load your car with all these gifts.
Thank you. I'll just leave it here for right now. Thank you kindly, everybody.
76,000 for 3 years on the contract.
Okay, so we got a number 76,000 for 3 years on that contract, so hopefully everybody is okay with that. So that brings to an end our regular agenda, however.
And the rules to accept this resignation?
Oh, yeah, yep.
Get a motion.
So as we have to conclude that action, we are going to have to suspend the rules and then accept, unfortunately, Counselor Johnson's resignation. So I would open it up to a motion by Counselor Powers and a second by Counselor Bosley, please.
So what would we do if we wouldn't accept it? Mr. Williams, anyway. She already got her gifts, so. Boy, I hate doing this. It's been fun. But I move to suspend Section 26 of the Rules of Order to act upon the resignation of Counselor Gladys Johnson.
Second.
And we have a motion from Counselor Powers, seconded by Counselor Bosley. Is there any discussion on suspending the rules? Again, this has to be a roll call vote and a 2/3 majority. I'd ask the clerk.
And Counselor Johnson would be abstaining from this, right?
You can vote. Yeah.
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy?
Yes.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes, you
Counselor-
betcha.
Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Roberts?
Yes.
Counselor Ormerod?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
I don't know. Yes.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
And so that is unanimous. The rules are suspended, so I'm looking for a motion for Counselor Powers, second by Counselor Bosley,
Thank you,
please.
Your Honor. I reluctantly move to accept the resignation of Ward 4 Counselor Johnson with regret and great appreciation for your years of service here, to Keene State, and to the city of Keene. Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion by Counselor Powers, seconded by Counselor Bosley. Any further discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? All those in favor? Opposed? And that is regrettably unanimous. So I will declare, as pursuant to Section 37 of the Rules of Order, I will declare the Ward 4 council seat as vacant, effective immediately, because it is within 120 days of the election for that position. The seat will remain vacant until January 1st, when a new elected person will take it over. And so with that, we have reached the end of our regularly scheduled agenda. However, we have some items of business still. We have a non-public, or an adjournment for collective bargaining. So at this time, I will adjourn the regular meeting for collective bargaining, and we will have a 3-minute recess to clear the room. We stand adjourned.